Okay, we're live. Hi, everyone. Welcome. Good evening. I hope you're doing well. Hope you had a great week, and I hope you're ready to continue exploring music theory. We started 5 weeks ago, and we covered quite a few elements, really, of what makes music theory. If you're just joining us, I say this all the time: stick with me throughout this hour-long session, even if you missed the previous four. That's okay. This is gradual, but you can still get something out of this lesson. I'm going to try to make it approachable to anyone, any level. And once we're done with this hour-long session, if you missed the others, you can go back and check out the four previous sessions. So this full series is an 8-hour-long series, so 8 weeks, in which I'm going to give you the tools to basically be on your own as far as understanding music theory. Music theory doesn't have to be complex. It's all about having a method to approach theory. And once you have these 8 core concepts, we're in concept number 5 today, you will be able to basically work towards any kind of musical theory elements you want to, any kind of genre, any kind of scales, any kind of improvisation concepts. You'll have the tools to do that. This is an interactive session, so if this is your first time again, you know that you can type your questions on the chat. Feel free to do that. You need to be logged into JamPlay to do that. But I hope you are. I hope you're a member.
Or through live stream, you can do it.
Through live stream too. Okay, you can do that through live stream too if you want to type your questions. And we'll have a few breaks where I will take your questions live and make sure that you ask questions because I don't want you to be stuck on a piece of information that is going to be crucial to the next piece of information. That's really the main thing with music theory. It's a gradual thing. Really simple concepts, which put together can be overwhelming, but if you approach them concept by concept, small piece by small piece, in the end, after 8 weeks, you'll see that you have a good understanding of what all that is. Grab your guitar if you have it, because we're going to play a little game here, which is going to be a good way to kind of remind ourselves of everything we have done in the past. And I will walk you through, I'll give you the answer too. But this is for those of you who have been there since the beginning, since week 1. You know the game. We're gonna have a starting point, and I'm gonna give you a path to follow on your guitar. If you don't have your guitar, just imagine, visualize the fretboard, and we'll see if we land on the same space on the fretboard. So the starting point is going to be the 6th string, 5th fret, right there. That's the starting point. So put your finger on there, or imagine that placement on the neck, and from there, which is going to be the root, I would like you to play a perfect 4th. So you should visualize, or you should be playing a different fret, maybe a different string, depending on your knowledge of the previous sessions, but you should be landing somewhere, and that somewhere is going to be the new starting point, and from that somewhere, I would like you to play a minor 7. So do what you have to do, the minor 7th, and if you did this correctly, you should be playing or imagining right now the 3rd string, 5th fret. So let's do that together. The starting point was the low E string, 6th string, 5th fret, right here. And that's our root. From there, I asked you to play a perfect 4th. So mentally, what you should be doing is to play the shape that we've covered in the past. Session 1, that's where we got those shapes. And those shapes listed all the major intervals and the perfect intervals. Therefore, because I asked you for a perfect interval, a perfect 4th, that's built into the shape. So you follow the shape. 1, 2, 3, 4. That was the perfect 4th, and this happens to be on the 5th string, 5th fret. That's our new root, so you're going to use this shape that starts this time with a root on the 5th string. And I asked you for a minor 7th, so you follow that shape. Minor 7th is not built into the shape directly because the shape only lists the perfect intervals in the major. So you land on the major 7th and you make it minor by decreasing that interval a half step. And so if we follow the shape from the 5th string, 5th fret, we're going to follow it until we reach the major 7th. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The 7 is on the 3rd string, 6th fret. That's a major 7th. To make it minor, 1 fret lower. and that's the landing point, and that was the answer to the little pathway that we took, and that's the 3rd string, 5th fret. Okay, let's do another one just for fun. This time we're going to consider our root on the 5th string, 12th fret, and from that I would like you to play a diminished 5th. So you're going to follow your shape until you find your diminished 5th. If the diminished interval is not built into the shape, you're going to land on one of the intervals that is built in the shape, in this case the perfect 5th. Make it diminished. That's your new starting point, and from there I would like you to play a perfect 5th. So where are you? If the starting point was the 5th string, 12th fret, you should be playing the 3rd string, 15th fret. Because if I've got my starting point here, 5th string, 12th fret, I follow my shape until I have a perfect 5th. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's the 4th string, 14th fret. Make it diminished, 1 fret lower. 4th string, 13th fret. And from there, you're going to follow the new shape, which has the root on the 4th string. Follow the shape until you reach the perfect 5th. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that's the 3rd string, 15th fret. So that's what we covered in the first 2 lessons. The first 2 sessions were all about intervals, which is the distance between 2 notes. And the knowledge of intervals is going to allow you to do anything in music theory, really. It's going to allow you to embellish chords. If you have a chord that sounds a little dull, for example, and you want to brighten it up or add an extra color, try to add an interval that's not in the chord, like the major 2nd, for example, or the major 9th. And that can be done because of the intervals, or major 6th. All that is unlocked with the 2 first sessions, intervals. And then we talked a little bit in the last 3 sessions, we talked about how scales and chords interact with each other. And the key element, if you want to figure out which scale to use over a chord or chord progression, is to match the elements. That's a concept that's very important in music. Matching the elements means that you're going to look at the musical element you have to play over, a chord, a riff, a melodic idea, whatever it is. You're going to analyze that to extract from it the intervals. And matching the elements means that if you want to play over that musical element that has, let's say, a 3rd that is major, if you were to play a 3rd, you need to play a major 3rd. You match the elements. A minor 3rd over a major 3rd is going to clash. Now, about clashing is okay. That sounds tensed. That's basically playing outside, and we do it all the time, but we just need to be aware that it's going to sound a little bit tensed. Blues players do it all the time, or they play a scale that has a minor 3rd, like the minor pentatonic scale. A minor 3rd over a chord that has a major 3rd. And that's done all the time, and that's what gives this kind of flavor. That clashes a little bit, but it can be done. You just need to be aware of that. In other words, if you want to make the most melodic theme or musical piece, match the elements. That's not going to shock anyone. If you don't match the elements, it's going to sound a little tensed, and that can be an effect that you want to use. But that's what music theory is. And excuse me for a sec while I retrieve my pick. There we go. Try not to drop it. I keep dropping picks in these sessions. So that's what we did. And last week, we talked about the major scale, which is a scale that has a blueprint. Every scale has a blueprint, a series of intervals that tells you what that scale is made of. And by knowing what the scale is made of, by knowing the intervals that make that scale, we can deduce chords that we can extract from that scale to build chord progressions. So it's all linked together. So today we're going to take a look at another scale, the minor scale, the natural minor scale. And before we do that, I want to remind you, or tell you, if you don't know it, that what makes a scale major or minor is the 3rd. That's the only thing that makes a scale major or minor. So if a scale has a major 3rd, it's a major scale. That means that there's a lot of major scales. As long as the third is major, it's part of the major scale family. There's a lot of major scales. All the other intervals can be minor. As long as you have the major in the third, it's a major scale. So there's two main boxes in music. You can classify any musical element in at least one of these boxes, major or minor. And if I have a major chord, I'm going to have to pick from the major scales found in my major box. If I have a minor chord, I'll pick a musical element in my minor box to blend the elements together. So we studied one of those major scales last week. And it's often referred to as the major scale. But just know that there's a lot of other major scales. Another name for that scale that we studied last week is the Ionian scale, or the Ionian mode. Same thing. And you already knew that scale because in session 1, we studied shapes. 1 and 2, we studied shapes that basically, if you analyze the shape, we found that all the intervals in the shape are the intervals that make the Ionian scale, the major scale. So that's what we did last week. And we saw how that scale could relate to other chords. Today we're going to take a look at a minor scale. There's a lot of minor scales. The one we're going to study today is the natural minor scale. And chances are, if you've been playing for a little while, you probably have ran into that scale at some point or another. And I'm going to give you the blueprint of that scale, the formula. That's something you need to memorize. As you're working through this session and throughout the week, you'll have a chance to kind of memorize that. But basically, here's the blueprint of natural minor scale. And with that blueprint, you should be able to play that scale somewhere. So we're going to take a look at the top shape here, which has its root on the low E string, the 6th string, and the 5th fret. And the blueprint is root, major second. You can follow along on your screen. Minor third, we already knew that, right? Because it's a minor scale, and what makes a scale minor is the third. So we have a minor third, we have a perfect fourth, we also have a perfect fifth, a minor sixth, and a minor seventh. Minor can be, for a minor interval, you can notate that as little m and then the number for the interval, or flat, like a B. And that's what's happening there on that diagram. That top shape is for a root found on the 6th string and the 5th string. Because, and you should know that if you've been following the previous 4 sessions, if not, just take note of this. A shape, whether it's a scale, a chord, a lick, is going to be identical regardless of which string you're starting it from, unless you have strings 2 and 3 involved at the same time. They need to be involved within the span of your shape. And in this case, the shape crosses 3 consecutive strings. So if we had a root on the low E string, it would be strings 6, 5, 4. That doesn't involve 3 and 2 together. If we had a root on the 5th string, that would be strings 5, 4, 3. That's not 3 and 2 together. So it's the same exact shape. So if we had the root on the 5th string, 5th fret, for example, it would be the same exact shape that you see on the top. That's why that top shape is for roots on strings 6 and 5. On the other hand, shape 2 there, the middle one, is for a root on the 4th string. And you see that the shape changes a little bit. It's a little bit different because it involves strings 3 and 2 together. This shape covers strings 4, 3, and 2. And same for the third shape on the bottom there. But let's take a look at the top shape. The root's going to be A, and we have an A on the low E string, 5th fret. That's the root. The major second, and we know already where that major second is because the original shape that we were using, the canvas that was in session 1 and 2, lists that major second automatically. So we know that. Then we have a minor third or a flat third. And to make it minor, we take the major third, which is in the shape, make it minor by moving it 1 fret lower. And what I did here, I took that minor third, which in this case I'm playing on the 5th string 3rd fret, and I moved it to the 6th string 8th fret. Same exact sound, but it's going to be easier fingering that way. but it's the same exact sound, so we're allowed to do that. So we got root, major second, minor third, perfect fourth, which is built in your original shape, perfect fifth, minor sixth or flat sixth. It's right here. If you followed your shape, you'd have the major sixth, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1 fret lower. But for fingering purposes, we're going to move that 4th string 3rd fret to the 5th string 8th fret. Again, same exact sound. But for fingering purposes, it's going to be easier to do that. We're kind of regrouping these notes in the same area of the fretboard instead of like shifting around like that. It's just easier to play. So we've got root, major second, minor third, perfect fourth, perfect fifth, minor sixth. Then we have a minor seventh on the 4th string 5th fret. And those are the 7 intervals that make the minor scale, or the natural minor scale. Then I've got another root right here, an octave higher, but we already knew that root. It's just the same exact note, same function, but an octave higher. So that's basically the scale we're going to study today. If we were to play that scale this time with a root on the 5th string, let's say that we were in D, for example. 5th string, 5th fret is the D. Same exact shape, same fingering, but you're just starting from a different string, different fret, or same fret in this case. That's also a minor scale, or natural minor scale, in D this time. And you can play that on any root you want, and as long as you follow the same shape. So get comfortable with that fingering. And as far as the finger is used, I'm trying to stick to 1 finger per fret. So if I go back to the original shape 1 there, root on the 6th string 5th fret, I'm starting with my index for the root. The major second is played with the ring. The pinky takes care of the minor third. On the next string, I have the same exact fingers going on for the 4th, 5th, and minor 6th. That's index, ring, and pinky. And for the minor 7th and the root, I also have index and ring. And you could just move that wherever you want on the 5th and the 6th string. If we were playing on the 4th string for the root, the shape changes, and you have it listed there. If we had the root on the 4th string, 5th fret, that happens to be a G, it would be that type of fingering there. Very similar, the first 2 strings remain the same, the first 6 notes. And we just have a shift here, 1 fret higher for the minor 7th and the root. For the fingers, it's whatever's comfortable really, but if you wanted to stick to 1 finger per fret, you would use index, ring, pinky, index, ring, pinky, middle, and pinky. But it really doesn't matter. The fingers really don't matter unless you're having pain or difficulty playing a certain passage, but someone's not going to listen to what you're playing with their eyes. They don't care which finger you play with. So that's just to stretch a little bit and just get used to using all the fingers. And finally, if we had a root on the 3rd string, 5th fret in this case, again the shape changes a little bit. We're going to have frets 5, 7, 8 on the 3rd string. On the next string, we'll have frets 6, 8, 9. And on the 1st string, we have frets 6, 8. So even though the shape changes, the intervals remain the same. That's the formula for the natural minor scale. Root, major second, minor third, because it's a minor scale, perfect fourth, perfect fifth, minor sixth, minor seventh. All right, now, what do we do with that? How do we make music with that? Well, we're going to take that formula and we're going to extract from it chords. We're going to make up chords. There's really no rules as far as which chord we're going to extract from it, as long as the intervals remain the same. So we've got the formula: root, major second, minor third, perfect fourth, perfect fifth, minor sixth, minor seventh. Let's extract a simple chord with root. We're going to skip the next note, which is the major second, to the minor third. Skip the next note, which is the perfect fourth, to the perfect fifth. Skip the next, which is the minor sixth, to the minor seventh. So we're going to build a 4-note chord, for example, and we're respecting the elements because we're extracting these intervals from the blueprint that we're using, the blueprint of the natural minor scale, the Aeolian mode, that's another name for it. And we extracted from it 4 notes, randomly. Root, minor third, perfect fourth, minor seventh. So these notes right here, if we're in A, root, minor third, perfect fifth, minor seventh. I'm going to reorganize these notes so that I can play all 4 together at the same time, because I can't do that this time because the root and the minor third are on the same string. So I'm going to reorganize things around to build my chord. If I were on a piano, it would be way easier, but I'm not, so I can play like that. And the fingering here, if you're interested, is a little stretch here, but basically I'm playing the root with the pinky this time, low E string 5th fret with the pinky. I'm grabbing the minor third on the 5th string 3rd fret, and I'm using my middle finger there. The perfect fifth is played with the index. I had to move it from the 5th string 7th fret. I had to move that to the 4th string 2nd fret. And then the minor 7th, again, I had to move it from the 4th string 5th fret to the 3rd string open. Same exact sound, and that's my chord. So I'm going to loop that around. I'm going to start with the simple bass groove, just going from the root to the minor 7th. So I've got my bass going on, that gives us our foundation. And on that, I'm going to just kind of play around with that chord. Try to come up with an interesting groove. Now, these 2 musical elements, the bass, that I started recording, with that chord, were extracted from the scale. That means that I can solo using the natural minor scale. I can use the first position that we had, the first shape, and I'm going to improvise using that first shape. I'm going to start by just playing these 7 notes. They all work together because I extracted from that scale. I extracted from that the notes to make my progression. Now, that's very Scholar, right? I don't have to play it that way. I could just improvise something a little more interesting than that. I'm going to delete that last layer. I'm going to play those chords again. And over that, instead of just playing my scale, I'm going to start making words using these 7 notes. We talked about that last week. Okay, so that's what we just did, right? We just improvised by taking some elements of the formula of the scale, the natural minor scale. We built a groove with that, and we just started to improvise. Little reminder, that can simplify your thought process when you're improvising. Music is a conversation, and music theory is to what a conversation is basically the grammar of a conversation. So music theory just helps you organize your thoughts, helps you spell out things too. But when you're playing music, when you're improvising, you don't want to overthink it. It's just like when you're talking, you're not spelling out all the words that you're saying. That would drive you crazy, and you wouldn't really be able to convey interesting ideas. You just basically transpose everything that you're saying, spell out everything you're saying. So, why am I saying that? I'm getting a little lost. We'll take questions in a second. Hopefully there are some. We have, so when I'm talking to you, I'm using words, right? And I'm trying to put these words one after the other so that they make sense. These words are extracted from the alphabet. In music, the alphabet is going to be the blueprint of the Aeolian mode, for example, which we're studying today, the natural minor scale. It's a 7-note musical alphabet. And if I just played using that alphabet, that wouldn't mean much. I'd just be, it's like me talking A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, and so forth, and you make up your words. I've got to make up the words when I'm improvising. So I can extract from that 7-note alphabet words, musical ideas, by taking some of these notes, maybe repeating some of these notes, maybe saying a few words slower or faster or with a stutter. All those things can be applied to improvisation. Okay, so now that we have that, let's take a break. We're gonna answer some questions if we have some, and we'll come back to that.
Just a couple, but this one, depending on how deep you get, this could take a little bit. Why is the major second used in the minor scale? It is the only major interval in the minor scale pattern.
Yeah, good question. In this particular scale, the natural minor scale, we happen to have a major second. That's just the way it is, but I just want to make sure that you understand that a minor scale can have major intervals as long as the third is minor. That's the most important thing. There is a minor scale that has a minor second. It's a different minor scale. It's called the Phrygian scale, or the Phrygian mode. And as a matter of fact, you could sit down and write down all the different possible combinations of intervals with a root and a minor third, and you would have a bunch of different minor scales, and there's a lot out there. You could have a scale with only major intervals and just one minor, and the third is minor. It would still be a minor scale. Let me demonstrate. That's a good thing to do here. I'm going to go back to just a simple bass like that, which is just an A in a minor seventh. Over that, I'm going to play. Actually, I'm going to go one step further. I'm going to play a loop with just an A, just a root. That's it. Okay, so we just have A's. Anything I play is going to be attracted to that A. All the notes are attracted to that. So I'm going to play a scale that has only major intervals except for the third. It's still going to have a minor color. So the root's the root, major second, a minor third, perfect fourth, perfect fifth, major sixth, still minor third, minor scale because of that minor third. A major seventh, it has a particular color, but it's a minor color because of that minor third. Now I'm going to play a scale with only minor intervals. The third is still minor, so it's still part of the minor scale family. So a root, minor second, a minor third, perfect fourth, perfect fifth, minor sixth, minor seventh. So that's another type of minor color. Changes from what we had earlier. Different colors. So the question was, why is there a major second? Because if there wasn't a minor second, then it would be another type of minor scale. And today we're just studying the natural minor scale, and that's the formula. But it's absolutely possible to have a minor scale with a minor second. It would have a different name, but it'd be in the same minor scale box. Great question.
Okay, we had one just come in. I'm going to jump to.
Okay.
In regards to what you were just talking about, you say that you take random 4 notes and made a chord. Really any, and why exactly 4?
Yeah, really any, and let's actually try that. This, the notes that I picked, yeah, maybe they're not that random. They're very traditional sounding, the notes that I picked there. Root, minor third, perfect fifth, minor seventh. But let's try with other notes. I'm going to tune up really quick, because when you're doing some loop stuff, it really screams out that you're not in tune if you're not in tune. And this time we'll try a little exercise. We're going to try to build an interesting chord progression using the same formula: root, major second, minor third, perfect fourth, perfect fifth, minor sixth, minor seventh, and we'll try different types of notes. So we're going to start with our bass. I'm going to just kind of go between the root and the minor seventh again for that bass. We're still in A. Oops, sorry, I've got to delete that previous one. There we go. So we've got our bass going on there. And let's try something with a 2, a 4, and a 5. So the major second, which is right there, the perfect fourth, and the perfect fifth. These 3 notes that we're going to stack on top of each other. On a piano it would be easier, but we've got to kind of figure out something here. And we'll play it over that bass. To help our ears distinguish the bass from the chord, instead of playing the major second so close to the bass, I'm going to play that an octave higher. So that's our major second. Then I'm looking for the fourth, 1, 2, 3, 4, and the fifth, which is this. That's our chord. And let's add another chord on top of that. So that's our first chord. And for the next chord, let's do, again, it's random, so I don't know why I'm thinking. We'll do 5, 6, 2. 5, 6, 2. So 5 is here, an octave higher. 6, which is a minor 6, and 2. That's our chord. First one was this. Next one. And then it's just a matter of kind of trying to be musical. So I'm trying to find an idea that is kind of musical with that. I missed the button there. Yeah. Okay, I've got my chord progression. Random notes, right? A color is kind of establishing itself. And over that, I can improvise using my alphabet. Okay, so that is just an example, and random notes, really. It works really well if you have a sequencer, if you can record yourself, where you play your bass, even on a guitar, that works fine, a little drum loop, and on top of that, if those notes that you extracted from the musical alphabet, which was the Aeolian, that blueprint, you play it on a pad, like a keyboard with a pad. That works really well, and it's going to help differentiate those notes even more because the texture of the sounds are different. And you're going to come up with really interesting ideas, I think, if you try that. But yeah, random notes, another good question. Are there any others?
Okay, this I think refers back to that minor scale example you made up a little bit ago. Can we play the relative major over that progression?
Yeah, that's a good question too. So that tells me that you're a little more advanced than a complete beginner, and that's great. So for those of you who are really beginners, don't pay too much attention to my answer here. But here it goes. Yes, you can definitely use the relative major. The problem with thinking in terms of relative major, and I'm assuming that you know what it is, and I'm not going to explain necessarily right now, but I know you know what it is because of your question. The problem with that is that you're going to start to use the shape of that relative major, and within that shape, it might be a little bit harder to target certain intervals because now instead of thinking in terms of Aeolian, you're thinking in terms of a parent scale, the relative major in this case, and that kind of breaks the train of thought that I want you to have, which is every scale, even though they can be connected to each other, every scale, every mode, I think, should be seen as unique and individual scales in themselves. Instead of bringing them back to the mother scale, which is great for fingering purposes, and when you're starting out and you want to play with different modes quickly, at some point it kind of creates problems because you took the shortcut first to bring back everything to a parent scale, to the relative major scale, and that kind of hurts your phrasing after a while because you're not targeting necessarily the intervals directly within the mode. But the quick answer is, yeah, you can absolutely use the relative major scale, but the relative major scale is just a position. You're still playing in Aeolian or a natural minor. It's the chord progression that you're playing over that determines the scale you're playing in.
Okay. Will this counting work with the blues scale? I think that's referring to the patterns that we have on the sheet.
Yeah, so it does. You can analyze the blues scale with your intervals. The thing with the blues scale is, and let's forget the blues scale for now. Let's just talk about minor pentatonic scale, which is just like the blues scale. The blues scale has an additional note in that, a passing tone, the blue note. But our standard minor pentatonic scale has 5 notes. And the counting that we're doing there, like root, second, major or minor, third, and so forth, it's based on a 7-note system. The penta scale, any penta scales are 5-note scales. That means that we're not playing all the intervals. And you just need to be careful. With the blues scale, for example, we don't have any second in there. The second note is not the second interval. The second note is the third, actually. It's the minor third. But if we were to analyze what a blues scale is, in A, for example, A would be the root. So we'd have the root in A, a minor third, a perfect fourth, and then we have a perfect fifth, and in between the perfect fourth and the perfect fifth, we have that note in between there, the passing tone. And that note can be either called augmented fourth or diminished fifth. That's in sessions 1 and 2. Traditionally, it's referred to as the diminished fifth in a blues scale context. But you could call it the augmented fourth. It's the same thing. Perfect fifth, minor seventh. That's for the formula of the blues scale. So yes, any scale, any chord, any musical element can be counted, can be analyzed, and should be almost instantaneously, because you want to be able to match the elements again. So, yeah. Anything else for now?
Yeah, I've got a couple more. So pull this one up. Can a solo be played using the same scale shape but in a different key or root than the chord's root note?
Yes, but it's gonna sound outside. Sounding outside means that you're not playing in the original key, and that means that you're not matching the elements. For example, if we had, let's just consider one chord, okay, instead of a chord progression, just one chord, and I'll play a vamp, and I'll consider that chord to be an A Aeolian, okay, A natural minor, just like we were studying today. So I'm going to loop that, and here's my chord progression. If I want to be inside, I would match the elements. So the root is A, and I would start on the A and build my scale. It all sounds well together, it fits together. Now if instead of starting with A, I started with C, for example, another root, it's not going to match. I'm not matching the elements. You hear that? Doesn't really match. But I said that yes, you can do it. Sometimes you can do that tastefully by borrowing some notes that are not contained in your scale. Like that's in. But if I borrow some notes outside every once in a while, it's going to create tension. Here's tension. But the cool thing with tension is that a tension can always be resolved. And that's a good feeling to have. So you can play with that by giving the listener a sense of tensed uncomfortableness to bring him back. So let's illustrate that. I'm inside. Outside. Little tensed. And back inside like that. So that's to answer your question. Yes, you can do it. It's going to add tension. Wait, stop. Sorry. And there you go. So yeah, hopefully that answered the question.
Okay, there's 2 more that we can hit now, and then we can go back to
Okay.
playing material. Is there a relationship between the 3 scale forms in their current position? Do I need to move the scales to stay in A minor?
Yeah. So yes, the shapes, those shapes, yes, they are in different keys. I started them on the same root. Not the same root, the same fret, just because. But if you want to stay in an A, yeah, you need to make sure that those red notes, which are the roots, the R notes, we need to make sure that they are A's. So in this case, what I would do is for the shape 1, the root on the low E string, if we're in A, it would start on the fifth fret. String, if we were on the 5th string, I would have to start that shape on the 12th fret. If I was on the 4th string, we have an A on the 7th fret. And if I had a root on the 3rd string, I have an A on the 2nd fret. So yeah, I would have to make sure that these start with the right root. That's going to be a good question for the next part. But we have another question.
Yeah, one more. If you have a major 7th and lower it a half step, does it become minor?
Yep. Yeah, it does. Any major interval is only a half step or 1 fret away from a minor one. And to make a major 1 minor, you move it towards the left. You move the interval towards the left to reduce that that distance, because intervals are distances. Make an interval smaller, it makes it minor. If you have a minor interval, to make it major, it goes the other way around. So yes. Cool. Okay, so we had the previous question was about those shapes. If we want to stay in A, I would have to make sure that those roots were A's. And we used that shape just to illustrate what the blueprint was, the formula of the natural minor scale, what it is. Now, if we only relied on those shapes, that would be a little bit difficult. Like when I was playing over that that groove that I looped here earlier, my alphabet was kind of narrow. I was just playing the first 7 notes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and that is kind of limiting. I could extend that to other shapes and combine different shapes together to cover a wider area of the fretboard to improvise. Obviously, the notes that I'd be playing would be the same exact 7 notes. I would always have an A for the root, always have a major 2nd for the 2nd, always have a minor 3rd for the minor 3rd, but play it in different areas of the fretboard. And if we were to take a fretboard, a blank fretboard, and I encourage you to do that this week, and anytime you're studying a new scale, a new mode, find a blank fretboard and print out that blank fretboard and put a dot anytime you have one of the 7 intervals of the scale you're studying. And you will have a big fretboard full of dots, very difficult to memorize. But if you take that big fretboard with all the dots and you slice it into smaller sections, you will have what we call positions. And positions are something just a very guitar-related thing. If you talk about positions to a piano player, it's not going to mean the same thing. A position is basically a slice of the fretboard. And there are 2 main types of positions. There's more than that. You can make your own. But the 2 main types are the narrower positions, like that. They don't require much stretches. They don't go from one end of the fretboard to the other. They're very narrow, very focused. Those are called vertical positions, because if you look at your guitar, it's vertical. From the ground up or from the upside down, it's just vertical. As opposed to horizontal positions, which instead of thinking this way, you think that way or that way, along the neck. They both have their advantages. Horizontal positions, which cover wider areas of the fretboard, are great for speed playing and legato playing, which is a technique where instead of picking every note, just pick one and the rest kind of follows like that with your fingers. Or tapping or those kind of things, those kind of faster runs. Those are great with horizontal playing. Problem with horizontal playing is that you're starting in one area of the fretboard and you end in a very far apart area. And if you're playing in that far apart area, it's kind of hard sometimes to know which interval you're targeting. And targeting your intervals is a good thing to do when you improvise, because each interval has its own sound. So the advantage is that it's faster. You can play faster licks. The disadvantage is that it's going to be harder to target particular intervals. On the other hand, vertical intervals, which are narrower, are not very speed friendly, but they're great to target the intervals and sound more melodic. So we're going to take a look at a couple diagrams here. And on the top one, you see a vertical one, which happens, the width of that interval is 4 frets. Between the 5th to the 8th, we have 4 frets, so that's a vertical one. And the second one, on the bottom, it's also called the 3-note per string position, because if you count, you see 3 notes on every string, and that's more horizontal. It kind of stretches apart. Let's start with the top one, which is also called the boxed position. Vertical position, boxed position, all that kind of vocabulary is the same. The minor pentatonic scale that you probably learned is a boxed position, a vertical position. So if we look at that one, we recognize the first 7 notes. Those are the ones that we studied at the beginning of this session. So we see between both, we always have the same intervals. They're the same exact scales. They sound exactly the same. The other one. They sound exactly the same. One ends a little bit higher. The second one ends on the perfect fourth. The first one ends on the minor third. But they're the same. If you close your eyes, you wouldn't be able to recognize. I want you to learn them, so you can always refer to that diagram throughout the week. You can take a look at it, rewatch this video, and you need to know both. And as you're doing that, I want you to focus on the intervals, memorize those intervals. What are they? Like if you start playing, what is that? Minor sixth. You can always check your diagram to make sure that you're landing on the right one. But they both have their use. And what do you want? What you want eventually is be able to go from one to the other and make the most out of these two different. Sorry, losing my voice. Make the most out of these two positions and see which ones will work best for particular licks or musical ideas. So let's try that. I'm going to improvise a little bit. I'm going to create another quick musical bed. We're still in a natural minor scale. I'll start with my bass. On top of that, I'm going to add a chord. I'm going to start with the boxed position. That's going to be more focused. I'm going to be able to really focus on particular intervals. For instance, I'm going to build an idea that lands on the major second. That major second is easy to find because it's a boxed position, and it's easier to know where you are according to that root. If I try to play fast, a faster sequence in that position, it would be a little odd, a little bit difficult, because I don't have the same number of strings on each of these strings, and that's going to kind of mess me up as I go. So if I try to create a sequence like this, it's going to be difficult. Now if I switch to the horizontal way of playing, that has 3 notes per string, it's going to be easier. Way easier to play than the box. That's hard. So those are the advantages. And I want you to try to blend both together. Go from one to the other. Start with the box position. And then the horizontal. Back to the box. Horizontal. So that's a practical use with that. And feel free to explore the jam track section of JamPlay. Great resources. You can browse through the different types of scales, major scales, minor scales. Find one that's in the natural minor key. It doesn't have to be A. Any root's okay as long as you start your scale according to that root. And start improvising. First, just play the alphabet, the scale itself, to get comfortable with that, how these intervals kind of react and interact with the backing track you're playing over. And then make simple words. You can't go wrong as long as your words use the 7 notes of the scale you're in. You're going to be understood, and what you play is going to make sense. And then take a few words, 2, 3 words, repeat them, and try to add different flavors to them. Like, ask yourself, if you have a word that's like this, for example, say that's a word. How would that sound if I was scared? I don't know, maybe like this. A little quieter. Or maybe I would have a little bit of stutter. More timid at the end, like slow down. What if this word sounded more excited? Maybe it'll be a little faster. Maybe. Or what if I'm really tired? Maybe it might sound like this. And ask yourself that question. How can I transform a word and add different kinds of emotions to it, telling a musical story? In the end, that's really what music theory is. You don't want to over-theorize things. You want to use music theory to understand how elements work together. But then once you understand, some people say you've got to understand music theory and then forget it. It's not that you want to forget it completely, but you don't want to speak using only the grammar of music. You also want to add your own musicality, your own story. You want to tell a story. That's the most important thing, I think, to keep in mind when you're improvising. Next week, we're going to take a look at the bigger picture. We're going to study modes. A mode and a scale is the same exact thing. And we're going to go through a collection of modes that is called the church modes. But once you understand that, and really there's not much more to understand than what we did today, it's just learning other types of formulas, picking from the minor box and the major box. But once you have that, it's just a matter of applying those and being able to hear the sound of those different modes. So that's coming next week. You can rewatch all these sessions, and I'll open it up to questions now.
Okay, we've got a few. In the box scale, what happened to the second major second?
I knew. I knew someone's going to point it out. I will re-upload that diagram. Somehow it's missing. I guess I didn't pay attention, but you're absolutely right. I'll put a note and I will re-upload it.
Okay. When learning the scales, does it make more sense to think of them in numbered intervals or whole and half-step intervals? Is that personal preference, or is one easier to learn and move?
So I've talked to players who use both, and they're great players. Personally, I use the numbered one more, and which means like root or 1, 2, major or minor, minor 3, perfect 4th, perfect 5. Others think in terms of whole, half, whole, half. I feel that the whole, half is a little more confusing for me. And I feel that it's harder with the whole half, to apply those intervals to a chord, for example. Whereas in the chord, a chord is never written as root, whole step, half step, half step, whole step. It's always the intervals in the chord that are given. So I would recommend using the numbered intervals. I think it's easier, but yeah.
Okay. I don't have an electric guitar, only acoustic. Are different A's the same frequency, or are they octaves and I just can't hear the difference?
Different A's, well, it depends. So there's a multitude of A's on the fretboard. Some are exactly the same frequency. They might sound a tiny bit different just because the string gauge is different, so you might hear a different in tone, but it's the same frequency. But you also have octaves. For example, if I play an A on the 6th string 5th fret, and I play an A on the 5th string open, those have the same frequencies. And they're both A's, right? Now there are some A's that are octaves higher. For example, I have one on the 4th string 7th fret, and that's an octave higher from the 6th string 5th fret. You hear the difference, right? They're different pitches, but they have the same function. They're both roots, they're both A's. So both, some A's are exactly the same frequencies, some are octaves, and I hope you can hear the difference if you try it again. If not, leave me a note.
Okay, this will be the last one
Okay.
for tonight. How many notes do we need to build a chord?
At least 2, and that's it. As long as you have 2, you're good. The least amount of notes you have, the more options you have as far as which scales to use, because you got to match the elements. So if you have only 2 elements to match, that's 5 other elements, 5 intervals that you get to pick from. But you can have super complex chords. If you have too many notes in a really rich, complex chord, it might be too cluttered, but you can have as much as you want, as long as there's 2. Good questions, and I'm excited about reading those because that shows me that you're getting something out of this. Don't hesitate to email me too. I'm available on JamPlay for more in-depth questions. I'm happy to answer those. So just hit the contact button somewhere, and if throughout the week you have more questions, write them down, and next week I'll make sure to answer those, and I'll put a note to update that diagram that's missing that major second. Thanks everyone. Have a great week, and I'll be back next week, same time, same place, same day. Have a good week and practice well.